The massive power distribution hub of the Galactic Council sparkled like a giant crystal in space, its countless energy conduits pulsing with blue light. Inside, alarm bells screamed through the curved corridors as red warning lights flashed everywhere. Alien engineers rushed back and forth, their faces showing different kinds of worry on very different kinds of faces. The head engineer of the facility, a tall blue-skinned alien named Rex, stared at the main control screen with all four of his eyes wide open. The power readings made no sense. Energy was flowing backwards through some systems, while others showed impossible spikes that should have blown every circuit. Yet somehow, the systems kept running, getting worse by the minute. "Try another reset," Rex shouted to his team. They had already tried this 5 times, but he was running out of ideas. The other engineers, representing the 12 most advanced species in the galaxy, worked their control panels with growing desperation. Each of them had centuries of experience with advanced technology, yet none of them could understand what was happening to their precious hub. The reset failed. Again. "Great builder of worlds," Rex muttered, using a curse that was popular in this part of the galaxy. He watched as another section of the power grid turned red on his screen. If they lost the hub, half the civilized galaxy would lose power. Thousands of worlds would go dark. Millions of ships would be stranded in space. An engineer with scales instead of skin looked up from her station. "Sir, the AI can't find any solution. It says the problem doesn't match any known pattern." Rex wanted to throw something. Their best artificial intelligence, programmed with the combined engineering knowledge of 12 species, was useless. He had already called in experts from 20 other species. None of them could help. That's when he remembered something. A rumor. A story that had spread through the engineering community about a primitive species from a backwater planet. Humans, they were called. They had joined the galactic community just 10 years ago, and their technology was laughably simple. But there were stories. Rex touched his communication panel. "Get me the Galactic Council. Emergency override." The council appeared on his screen almost instantly. 9 beings of different species, all looking worried. They had been watching the crisis unfold. "Honorable Council," Rex said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I request permission to contact a human engineer." The council chamber went silent. One of the council members, who looked like a floating cloud of gas, spoke first. "You want to bring a human to our most advanced power facility?" "Yes," Rex said. "I've heard they can solve problems that don't follow the rules." Another council member, this one made of living crystal, chimed in. "Rex, their species still uses combustion engines on some of their vehicles. They don't even have proper AI integration in their bodies." "Exactly," Rex said. "They still know how to fix things without AI, without computers. Sometimes," he hesitated, knowing how crazy it would sound, "sometimes they use something called duct tape." The council members looked at each other. The power readings on their screens were getting worse. More red warnings appeared. Finally, the head of the council spoke. "Who did you have in mind?" "There's a human engineer named Tom Walker," Rex said. "He fixed the supposedly unfixable reactor on Mining Station 7. He got the ancient transportation gate and the Proxima system working again. He even managed to repair the quantum communications array on the Edge station using parts from something called a microwave oven." Another alarm started blaring. 3 more power sectors turned red on the main screen. The head of the council looked at the emergency readings, then at her fellow council members. They all nodded, some more reluctantly than others. "Contact this Tom Walker," she said, "and may the great builder help us all." When the call reached Earth, Tom was in his workshop, covered in grease and surrounded by spare parts from 6 different species machines. He listened to Rex's explanation, asked a few questions that made no sense to the alien engineer, and then grinned. "I'll be there in an hour," he said, already packing his tools. And Rex, "Yes? Make sure you have some metal wire. Any kind will do. Oh, And if you have anything like rubber or plastic insulation, get that too. Lots of it. As he closed the communication, Tom looked at his trusty toolbox. Inside, next to the high-tech diagnostic tools and universal adapters, sat 3 rolls of duct tape, some WD-40, and various other primitive tools that had saved his neck more times than he could count. Time to show the galaxy how humans fix things, he said to himself, still grinning. Tom's ship docked at the power hub exactly 1 hour later. The moment he stepped out, Rex and his team of alien engineers rushed to meet him. They all stopped short when they saw what he was carrying, a battered metal toolbox that looked like it had been through several wars. That's your equipment?" Rex asked, all 4 eyes fixed on the scratched box. Tom nodded, looking around at the flashing red lights and hearing the alarms. "Best tools in the galaxy. Now show me what's wrong." As they walked to the main control room, 3 different alien engineers tried to explain the problem at once. Their technical terms overlapped and contradicted each other. Tom held up his hand. "Stop. Show me. Don't tell me." Rex led him to the main control panel. The display showed a complex web of power distribution lines, many of them flashing red or orange. Tom studied it for a moment, then asked something that made all the aliens stare at him in confusion. "Can I see it without the computer's analysis? Just the raw power readings. But without the AI interpretation, how will you understand the patterns?" a snake-like engineer asked. "Trust me," Tom said, opening his toolbox. "Sometimes you need to see what's really happening, not what the computer thinks is happening." Rex worked the controls, and the neat, eye-processed display changed to a chaotic mess of numbers and raw data. The aliens looked uncomfortable, as if seeing their beautiful system stripped down to its basics was physically painful. Tom smiled. This was exactly what he'd expected. "Your AI can't solve this because it's trying to be too perfect," he said, pulling out an old tablet computer that made the aliens wince. "You've got a feedback loop. Here, here, and here." He pointed to 3 different spots on the display. "But your systems are so automated that they can't see it. They keep trying to fix the symptoms instead of the cause." "A feedback loop." Rex leaned closer. "But the safety systems are part of the problem," Tom finished. "Your safety systems are fighting each other. Each one is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, but together they're making things worse." He pulled up a diagram on his tablet, drawing quick sketches with a stylus. The aliens gathered around, fascinated despite themselves. "Think of it like this," Tom explained. "You've got water flowing through pipes. One sensor says there's too much pressure, so it opens a valve. That makes another sensor think there's not enough pressure, so it closes a different valve. Back and forth, getting worse and worse." "But this is energy, not water," the snake-like engineer protested. "Same principle," Tom said. "Energy flows like water if you know how to see it. The problem is, your eye is too smart. It's trying to find a complex solution when what you need is simple." He walked over to a maintenance panel and opened it, revealing a maze of glowing power conduits. The aliens gasped as he pulled out a handheld device that looked almost primitive compared to their tools. "What we need to do," Tom said, "is break the loop. Force the system to reset itself naturally instead of letting the AI try to control everything. You want to manually interfere with a power grid that supplies energy to half the galaxy." Rex's voice was somewhere between terrified and amazed. Tom grinned. "Sometimes the best way to fix something is to get your hands dirty. Now I need access to the main power conduits, and I need your best technicians, the ones who actually work with the hardware, not just the computers." Rex hesitated for just a moment, then turned to his team. "Get me Jack from maintenance and Vix from the repair crew." As they waited, Tom kept studying the power readings. He pulled more tools from his box, manual diagnostic devices, cables, and yes, a roll of duct tape. The aliens tried not to stare. Finally, 2 new engineers arrived, Jack was a robotic being who specialized in physical repairs, and Vix was a small, furry creature with 6 arms and a belt full of tools. "Perfect," Tom said, handing them each some equipment from his box. "Here's what we're going to do. And remember, if anyone asks, just tell them an engineer said it would work." The aliens looked at each other nervously as Tom began explaining his plan. It was crazy. It was primitive. It went against everything they had been taught about advanced power systems. It was their only hope. Tom laid out his plan while the alien engineers listened with growing disbelief. He had drawn a simple diagram on his tablet, showing exactly what they needed to do. The more he explained, the more the aliens thought he was completely crazy. "Let me understand this correctly," Rex said, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "You want to manually rewire the main power conduits, bypass the safety systems, and create a controlled power surge." "That's right," Tom said, pulling out some cables from his toolbox. "The surge will force all systems to reset at once, like turning a computer off and on again, but for the whole power grid." The snake-like engineer raised her head in alarm. "But the surge could damage the critical systems." Tom shook his head. "That's why we're going to build a temporary bypass first. Jack, those robotic hands of yours will be perfect for holding the power cables. Vix, your 6 arms are exactly what we need for the rewiring work." As he spoke, Tom was already laying out tools and materials. The alien engineers watched in fascination as he pulled out things they had never seen before. Simple mechanical tools that didn't need computers to work. "Rex," Tom said, "I need you to monitor the power levels. When I give the signal, you'll have exactly 10 seconds to divert all power through our bypass." 10 seconds. Rex looked worried. The AI normally takes 3 minutes to calculate power adjustments. "That's the problem," Tom said, stripping the insulation off a cable with practiced ease. "We need to move faster than the AI can react. Otherwise, it'll try to stop us." He turned to the entire team. "This will be dangerous. I won't lie about that. But if we don't do something soon, the whole system will collapse anyway." The aliens looked at each other. Their training told them this was wrong. Their instincts said it was dangerous. But they had seen the power readings. They knew they were running out of options. "I'll help," Jack said, his metallic hands already reaching for the tools Tom had laid out. "Me too," Vix added, her fur bristling with excitement or fear. Maybe both. They got to work. Tom showed them how to modify the power conduits using his primitive tools. He taught them to feel the heat of the cables, to listen to the hum of the energy flow, to trust their instincts as much as their instruments. As they worked, alarms kept blaring throughout the facility. More sections of the power grid were failing. On the main screen, red warning lights spread like a disease. "How did you learn to do this?" Vix asked as she helped Tom splice together power cables that were never meant to be connected. Tom smiled while carefully wrapping insulation around a connection. "On Earth, we don't always have perfect conditions or the best equipment. We learn to work with what we have. Sometimes that means finding creative solutions. But this goes against all standard procedures," Rex said from his monitoring station. "Standard procedures are great when everything is working normally," Tom replied. "But in an emergency, you need to think differently. Sometimes you need to break the rules to fix the problem." The bypass system was starting to take shape. It looked strange to the aliens, a mix of their advanced technology and Tom's improvised connections. Jack held the main power cable steady with his robotic hands, while Vix used all 6 of her arms to weave smaller cables into place. "This is where human engineering shines," Tom explained as he checked their work. "We're good at finding ways to make different things work together. We've had lots of practice combining old and new technology back on Earth." Finally, after what seemed like hours, but was really only 40 minutes, the bypass was ready. Tom stepped back and looked at their creation. It wasn't pretty, but he knew it would work. "Now comes the hard part," he said, picking up his tablet. "We have to time this perfectly." If we're off by even a second, the whole thing could blow up in our faces. The aliens gathered around him, nervous but ready. They had come too far to back out now. Tom took a deep breath. Rex, get ready at the controls. Jack, keep those cables steady. Vix, watch the connection points. Remember, when I say now, we'll have 10 seconds to make history. He looked at each of them, then grinned. Trust me, I'm an engineer. The entire control room held its breath as Tom counted down. His hand hovered over the bypass controls while Rex watched the power readings with all 4 eyes wide open. Jack's metal fingers gripped the main power cables tightly, and Vix's fur stood on end as she monitored the connection points. 3, 2, 1, now. Rex slammed his hands down on the control panel. Emergency lights flashed everywhere as power began flowing through their makeshift bypass. The whole station groaned like a giant waking up from a deep sleep. 5 seconds. Tom shouted, watching the readings on his tablet. Keep it steady. Warning messages flashed across every screen as the AI tried to stop what was happening, but they were moving too fast for it to react. The power surge raced through their bypass, exactly as Tom had planned. 8 seconds. The walls started vibrating. Jack's metal arms shook as he held the cables in place. Vix used all 6 hands to stabilize the connections, her small furry face determined. 10 seconds. Cut it, Rex. Cut it now. Rex hit the emergency shutdown sequence. For one terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, every light in the station went out. They stood in complete darkness, listening to the sound of machinery powering down. Did it work? Rex's voice shook slightly in the dark. Before Tom could answer, emergency lights flickered on, casting a soft blue glow through the control room. All around them, systems began to restart, not in the chaotic mess they had been before, but in a smooth, orderly sequence. Tom checked his tablet, a smile spreading across his face. Look at the power readings. The main screen came back to life, showing the power grid. The red warning lights were gone. Every sector showed steady, normal power flow. The feedback loop was broken. I don't believe it, the snake-like engineer said, staring at the readings. The system, it's stabilizing itself. Sometimes, Tom said, starting to pack up his tools, you have to let things crash completely before they can fix themselves. Your eye was trying too hard to keep everything running. It couldn't see the simple solution. Just then, the communication screen lit up. The Galactic Council appeared, looking both worried and curious. We lost contact for 30 seconds, the head of the council said. What happened? Rex stepped forward, still looking a bit dazed. The human engineer. He stopped, not sure how to explain what they had just done. Tom walked into view of the screen, his toolbox in one hand and his tablet in the other. We performed a controlled system reset, honored council members. The power grid is now functioning normally. The council members looked at the power readings in amazement. One of them, the crystalline being, leaned forward. You fixed it. Just like that. Well, Tom said, gesturing to his team, I had help. Jack and Vix here have the steadiest hands I've ever seen. And Rex trusted us enough to try something unconventional. The head of the council studied the readings for a long moment. This is remarkable. But how can we be sure it won't happen again? Tom pulled up a diagram on his tablet. I can show you exactly what went wrong and how to prevent it. Your eye is incredibly advanced, but it needs to be programmed to recognize when simple solutions are better than complex ones. Perhaps, the head of the council said slowly, we have become too dependent on our automated systems. This incident has shown us that there is still value in, what did you call it? Getting your hands dirty. The other council members nodded in agreement. Even the floating gas clouds seemed to pulse in approval. Rex turned to Tom with newfound respect in all 4 eyes. Would you be willing to teach some of our engineers your methods? We clearly have much to learn about practical problem solving. Of course, Tom said, then grinned as he held up his roll of duct tape. First lesson. Sometimes the simplest tools are the most useful. Around the control room, the alien engineers gathered closer, eager to learn. They had just witnessed something that would change galactic engineering forever. The day a human engineer with a box of primitive tools saved their most advanced power system by thinking outside their very advanced box. Just as Tom was about to start his first lesson with the alien engineers, a deep rumble shook the entire station. The lights flickered and new alarms started blaring, different from the ones before. What's happening? Rex rushed to the control panel, his earlier confidence disappearing. The power readings are normal, but another rumble, stronger this time. Tom's tablet lit up with new warnings. He looked at the readings, and his face turned serious. The power surge did more than we thought, he said, quickly opening his toolbox again. It fixed the distribution system, but it also damaged the main cooling units. The snake-like engineer checked her instruments. Impossible. The cooling systems are triple redundant. And all three are failing, Tom said, already moving toward the maintenance corridor. The surge must have overloaded their control circuits at the same time. Rex's hands flew over the control panel. Core temperature rising. If we don't restore cooling in 10 minutes, the reactor will. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Everyone knew what would happen if a galactic-scale power reactor overheated. Entire solar systems could be affected. Can't we just shut it down? Vix asked, all 6 hands wringing nervously. Not anymore, Tom said, pulling tools from his box. It's already too hot. A shutdown now would cause an explosion. He turned to Jack. I need your robotic hands again. And Vix, grab every piece of metal pipe you can find. Pipes? Rex asked, confused even as he helped gather supplies. What are you planning? Tom was already drawing on his tablet. We're going to build an emergency cooling system. Something simple, something that doesn't need computers or AI to work. But our cooling systems are the most advanced in the galaxy. The snake-like engineer protested. And they're all controlled by circuits that just got fried, Tom said, checking the pipes Vix was bringing. We need something that works on basic physics. No computers, no AI, just the flow of heat and cold. The station shook again. Warning lights showed the core temperature climbing higher. Rex, Tom said, I need you to find every maintenance droid you can. We're going to build this fast. He turned to the other engineers. I need ice. Lots of ice. And every fan you can find. The aliens stared at him for a moment, then rushed to follow his orders. They had seen him work one miracle today. Maybe he could do another. Tom worked faster than he ever had before. He showed Jack how to weld pipes together in a spiral pattern. He taught Vix how to create emergency seals using his special tape and pieces of rubber. The maintenance droids, under Rex's direction, began assembling the pieces into a giant makeshift radiator. 7 minutes until critical temperature, Rex called out. Tom's improvised cooling system was taking shape. It looked nothing like the sleek, advanced technology the aliens were used to. It was ugly, with twisted pipes, makeshift joints, and pieces of Earth-style equipment mixed with alien technology. 5 minutes. They connected the last pipes. Tom checked every joint, every seal, every connection. One leak could ruin everything. 3 minutes. Start the ice feed, Tom shouted. The droids began loading the ice they had collected into the input tanks. Rex, give me half power to the emergency pumps. Cold water began flowing through the pipes. Steam hissed from the joints, but the seals held. 2 minutes. Core temperature still rising. Full power to the pumps. Tom ordered. Jack, start the fans. Vix, watch those pressure gauges. The makeshift system groaned under the strain. Tom's duct tape stretched but didn't break. The emergency seals held. 1 minute. Temperature. Temperature. Rex stared at his readings in disbelief. Temperature dropping. Tom didn't relax yet. He watched the gauges, listened to the flow of water, felt the vibration of the pipes. After 30 more tense seconds, he finally allowed himself to breathe. "We did it," he said. "The core is cooling. It's ugly, but it's working." The alien engineers gathered around the bizarre construction of pipes, fans, and ice makers that had just saved their station. It broke every rule of advanced engineering they knew. It looked like something from 1,000 years ago. And it worked perfectly. News of what happened at the power hub spread across the galaxy faster than light speed. Within hours, engineers from hundreds of different species were requesting permission to visit the station. They all wanted to see the strange human cooling system that had saved the most advanced power facility in known space. Tom stood in the main control room, explaining his improvised cooling system to yet another group of visiting engineers. Some had traveled for days just to see it. The pipes still hissed and steamed, doing their job without any computers or AI. "The beauty of it," Tom said, patting one of the pipes, "is that it can't really break down. There's nothing to break. It's just physics. Hot goes to cold, water flows downhill, steam rises up." A small engineer who looked like a walking plant raised what might have been a hand. "But how do you control it without computers?" Tom smiled and walked over to a simple gauge he had installed. "See this? When the needle goes up, you open this valve. When it goes down, you close it. No AI needed." Rex, who had barely left Tom's side since the crisis, nodded in agreement. "We've learned more about basic engineering principles in the past day than in the past 100 years." The Galactic Council had called an emergency meeting to discuss what happened. Their most advanced power station had been saved by what they had thought was primitive technology. It challenged everything they believed about engineering. As Tom continued his explanation, a group of students from the galaxy's most prestigious engineering school arrived. They carried tablets and scanning devices, eager to learn. But Tom made them put their computers away. "First lesson," he said, pulling wrenches and manual tools from his famous toolbox. "Learn to feel the machine. Listen to it. Understanding how things work with your hands is just as important as understanding them with computers." The students looked confused at first, but they followed his instructions. Soon, they were touching the pipes, feeling the vibrations, learning to tell the temperature by touch rather than sensors. "Your advanced technology is amazing," Tom told them. "But sometimes simple is better. Sometimes you need to be able to fix things with whatever you have on hand." Rex called Tom over to the main control panel. The display showed something interesting. Power efficiency had actually improved since they installed the manual cooling system. The AI wasn't constantly adjusting things, wasting energy trying to be perfect. "The Council wants to create a new engineering program," Rex said. "They want to combine our advanced technology with human practical engineering. Would you help us design it?" Tom thought about all the times back on Earth when he had fixed complex machines with simple tools, about all the engineers before him who had solved problems with creativity and basic principles, about how humans had learned to make things work with whatever they had available. "On one condition," he said, "we teach them that the fanciest solution isn't always the best solution. Sometimes duct tape and clever thinking beats the most advanced computer." Just then, Jack and Vix walked in, carrying boxes of tools. They had taken Tom's lessons to heart and started collecting their own set of primitive equipment. Other alien engineers were doing the same across the station. "We've been too focused on making things more complicated," Rex admitted. "We forgot that simple solutions can be the most reliable." A message flashed on the main screen. Another station across the galaxy was having problems with their quantum communication array. They specifically requested human engineering assistance. "Looks like you're becoming famous," Rex said. Tom grinned and picked up his toolbox. "Want to come along? I could teach you a few more tricks." Rex looked at the boxes of tools Jack and Vix were organizing, at the students learning to work with their hands, at the simple but effective cooling system that had saved their station. "Yes," he said, I think the galaxy needs to learn a lot more about human engineering." As they prepared to leave, one of the students asked Tom why human engineers always said, "Trust me," before doing something that seemed impossible. Tom laughed. "Because half the time, we're not completely sure it will work either. But we know the principles are sound, and sometimes you just have to trust that basic physics and practical experience will get you through." The student looked confused. "But how can you try something if you're not sure it will work?" "That's the best part of being a human engineer," Tom said, patting his toolbox. "We're really good at figuring things out as we go along." 6 months after the Power Hub incident, the Galactic Engineering Academy looked very different from before. In one of the main workshops, students from 100 different species gathered around workbenches, learning to use both advanced technology and simple tools. The sound of manual work mixed with the hum of high-tech equipment. Tom walked between the workbenches, watching his students practice. Some had tentacles, others had multiple arms, and a few were even made of energy fields. But they all shared the same eager look as they learned to solve problems the human way. "Remember," he said, holding up his trusty wrench, "fancy tools are great when you have them. But you need to understand the basics first. That way, you can fix anything, anywhere, with whatever you have." Rex, now the head of the new practical engineering department, entered the workshop carrying a communication device. His 4 eyes showed excitement. "Tom, you won't believe this," he said. "The latest statistics just came in. Engineering failures across the galaxy have dropped by 60% since we started teaching your methods." Tom smiled as he watched a group of students successfully repair a quantum engine using nothing but basic tools and clever thinking. "It's not just about the tools," he said. "It's about understanding how things really work, not just relying on computers to tell you." The Academy's walls were now decorated with pictures of famous repairs from Earth's history. The students learned about the Apollo 13 mission, where astronauts saved their spacecraft with duct tape and ingenuity. They studied how ancient engineers built monuments without computers. They learned that every problem had multiple solutions, and sometimes the simplest one was best. "Watch this," Rex said proudly, pointing to a student with crystalline skin. The student was fixing a broken energy converter using a combination of advanced alien technology and simple mechanical principles. 6 months ago, she would have just replaced the whole unit. Now she understands how to repair it. A message flashed on the workshop's main screen. Another emergency, this time at a terraforming station in a distant system. Their atmospheric processors were failing, and they needed help fast. "Who wants to handle this one?" Tom asked his students. To his surprise, every hand, tentacle, and appendage in the room went up. Even the energy beings flickered with enthusiasm. They all wanted to prove themselves. Tom looked at their eager faces and remembered his first emergency repair at the Power Hub. These students had learned well. They knew how to think creatively, work with their hands, and most importantly, trust their engineering instincts. "Jack Vix," he called out to his 2 original helpers, who were now teaching their own classes. "Take a team of students. Show them how it's done." As Jack and Vix selected their team, Tom noticed something interesting. Each student was packing both advanced alien tools and simple human ones. They had learned to use whatever worked best for each situation. The head of the Galactic Council visited the Academy regularly now. Today, she stood in the doorway, watching the students prepare for their emergency mission. "I must admit," she said to Tom, "when you first fixed our power hub with pipes and tape, I thought it was just luck. But you've changed how the entire galaxy thinks about engineering." Tom watched as his students confidently gathered their equipment. "Humans aren't the most advanced species," he said, "but we're good at figuring things out. We've had lots of practice making things work with whatever we have available." As the emergency response team prepared to leave, one of the students turned to Tom. "What if we run into a problem we've never seen before?" Tom grinned and handed the student his old roll of duct tape. "Then you'll do what engineers have always done. You'll look at what you have Think about what you know and figure something out. And when someone asks if you're sure it will work, the entire class joined in, saying the words that had become famous across the galaxy. Trust me, I'm an engineer. The phrase wasn't just a joke anymore. It had become a symbol of a new way of thinking about technology. A reminder that no matter how advanced the galaxy became, there would always be a place for human ingenuity, practical thinking, and the occasional roll of duct tape. As Tom watched his students head off to their next engineering adventure, he knew that the galaxy would never be quite the same. Sometimes the best way to move forward was to remember the basics, and sometimes the simplest solution was the most brilliant one of all.